The billionaire saw a maid put her toddler in a school bag and couldn't believe his eyes. Alexander Kane had seen everything money could buy. At 33, he stood at the pinnacle of success, his tech empire spanning 3 continents, his name synonymous with innovation and wealth. His penthouse occupied the top 3 floors of Manhattan's most exclusive building, where floor-to-ceiling windows offered views that made visitors gasp. Yet lately, those same views left him feeling nothing at all. This particular Tuesday morning started like any other. Alexander emerged from his master suite at precisely 6 a.m., dressed in a charcoal suit that cost more than most people earned in a month. His assistant had already laid out his schedule: back-to-back meetings, a lunch with investors, an evening gala he'd rather skip. The routine was suffocating, but it was his life. He was reviewing emails on his tablet when movement near the service entrance caught his eye. The building's back hallway, visible from a certain angle in his kitchen, was typically empty at this hour. But today he saw her, one of the cleaning staff, he assumed, though he'd never paid attention to any of them before. She was young, perhaps 28, with dark hair pulled back in a practical ponytail, wearing the uniform of the building's housekeeping service. But it wasn't the woman who made Alexander freeze mid-scroll. It was what she was doing. She knelt on the industrial carpet, and beside her stood a tiny girl, no more than 3 years old, with the same dark hair as the woman, tumbling in soft curls around her cherubic face. The little girl clutched a worn stuffed rabbit, and even from a distance, Alexander could see she was crying, her small shoulders shaking. The woman, clearly the child's mother, was speaking softly, her lips moving in words Alexander couldn't hear. Then she did something that made his heart stop. She picked up a school bag, brightly colored but clearly old and patched in places, and carefully, tenderly, helped the little girl climb inside it. Alexander's tablet clattered to the marble countertop. What was he seeing? His mind raced through possibilities, each more disturbing than the last. Was this abuse? Neglect? Some desperate act of a troubled parent? He watched, transfixed and horrified, as the woman zipped the bag partially closed, leaving enough space for air. The little girl's crying intensified, her tiny hands reaching out from the opening. The woman's face crumpled with pain, and she kissed her daughter's fingers, whispering something that made the child nod reluctantly. Then the woman stood, shouldering the bag with visible effort, the weight of the child making her movements awkward, and headed toward the service elevator. Alexander's paralysis broke. Without thinking, he abandoned his tablet, his coffee, his perfectly planned morning, and rushed toward his private elevator. His heart pounded as the floors ticked by. What was he doing? He never involved himself in staff matters. He barely acknowledged the people who kept his building running. But something about what he'd witnessed ignited a protective instinct he didn't know he possessed. The lobby was pristine and quiet, the morning doorman offering a respectful nod that Alexander barely registered. He pushed through to the service area, a part of the building he'd never entered in the 3 years he'd lived here. The corridor was narrow and utilitarian, stripped of the luxury that defined the residents' spaces. He caught sight of her just as she was exiting through a side door. "Wait," he called out, his voice sharper than intended. The woman spun around, her eyes going wide with alarm. Up close, Alexander could see the exhaustion etched into her delicate features, the dark circles under her brown eyes, the worn quality of her uniform. But he also saw her beauty, not the polished, maintained beauty of the women in his social circle, but something real and warm and infinitely more compelling. "Sir?" Her voice trembled slightly. The bag on her shoulder shifted, and he heard a small whimper from inside. "What?" Alexander struggled to form words, to sound less accusatory, less like the entitled billionaire everyone expected him to be. "I saw you upstairs with a child in that bag." The color drained from her face. Fear flashed across her features, followed quickly by something else. Defiance, perhaps, or desperation. Her hand moved protectively to the bag. "Please," she whispered. "Please don't report me.
I'll lose my job."
We'll lose everything. Report you." Alexander ran a hand through his hair, confused. "I don't understand what's happening. Why is there a child in that bag?" The woman's eyes filled with tears, but she blinked them back fiercely. Behind her, through the still open door, Alexander could see the street beginning to wake up, early commuters hurrying past. The January cold swept in, making him realize she wore no coat despite the freezing temperature. "I have to go," she said urgently. "My shift starts in 20 minutes, and I need to." "Your shift?" "Here." Alexander glanced at the bag again, hearing another soft cry from inside. "You're bringing a child to work? In a school bag?" She lifted her chin, and in that gesture, Alexander saw pride warring with shame. "I don't have a choice. Her daycare doesn't open until 7:30, and I start at 6:45. My supervisor." She swallowed hard. "He'll fire me if I'm late again. And we can't afford that." The pieces started falling into place, forming a picture that made Alexander's chest tighten uncomfortably. "So, you carry her? In a bag?" "It's the only way to get her past security without questions," the woman said, her voice barely above a whisper. "The building has rules about non-residents, even employee children. I hide her in the storage closet on the 3rd floor until 7:15, then I literally run the 12 blocks to Little Stars daycare, drop her off, and run back. I've timed it. I can do it in 28 minutes if I don't stop." Alexander stared at her, his carefully constructed worldview cracking. Every morning, while he sipped French press coffee and reviewed stock portfolios, this woman was smuggling her toddler into his building in a school bag, then running through New York streets to get her to daycare, then running back to scrub toilets and polish floors. He didn't know how to finish the sentence. Horrifying? Heartbreaking? Infuriating that such circumstances existed in a building where he paid $30,000 a month for his penthouse? "I know how it looks," she said quietly, her gaze dropping to the floor. "I know it's not ideal. But Emma, my daughter, she doesn't fit in my uniform backpack anymore, and the school bag is padding, and I'm careful, so careful, never to hurt her. She's safe, I promise. I would never." "How long?" Alexander interrupted. "How long have you been doing this?" The woman bit her lip. 4 months. Since her father. She stopped, shook her head. "That doesn't matter. Sir, I really have to go. Please, if you're going to report me, can you at least wait until after today? I need this 1 day's pay. We need it." She turned to leave, and Alexander found himself reaching out, stopping just short of touching her arm. "Wait. I'm not going to report you." She looked back at him, hope and disbelief mingling on her face. "But we need to talk," he continued. "After your shift. This situation, it's not sustainable. It's not right." A bitter smile crossed her lips. "Not right for who, sir? For your building's image? I can assure you, I'm invisible. None of the residents have ever noticed me, not in 10 months of working here. And they certainly won't notice Emma." The words stung, probably because they were true. Alexander couldn't remember ever really seeing any of the staff, let alone noticing their struggles. From inside the bag came a small voice, muffled but clear. "Mama?" "Cold." The woman's face transformed with tender concern. She unzipped the bag, slightly more, adjusting something inside. "I know, baby. Just a little longer. Then you'll be at school with Miss Rachel and all your friends." Alexander watched this exchange, something shifting fundamentally inside him. He'd made billion-dollar decisions without hesitation, had negotiated mergers that affected thousands of lives, had been called ruthless and brilliant in equal measure. But standing in this dingy corridor, watching a mother comfort her child hidden in a school bag because the world hadn't left her any better options, he felt helpless. And awakened. "What's your name?" he asked. She hesitated, then answered, "Sophia." "Sophia Martinez." "Sophia." He tested the name, finding he liked the sound of it. I'm Alexander Kane. I live in the penthouse.
I know.
Everyone knows. She shifted the bag again, glancing anxiously at her phone. Sir, I really…
Go, he said.
But Sophia? This conversation isn't over. I'll find you after your shift. She nodded uncertainly, then hurried out into the cold January morning, carrying her daughter and her burdens with equal determination. Alexander stood in the empty corridor long after she'd gone, his mind racing. His morning meetings suddenly seemed meaningless, his perfectly ordered life exposed as the shallow construct it was. He'd seen something real this morning, something that mattered, and for the first time in years, he felt compelled to act not for profit or prestige, but simply because it was right. He didn't know it yet, but this accidental encounter would unravel everything he thought he knew about success, happiness, and what it meant to truly live. The billionaire had seen a maid put her toddler in a school bag. And nothing would ever be the same. Sofia Martinez's hands trembled as she rode the service elevator up to the third floor, Emma's weight pressing against her back through the school bag. Her daughter had stopped crying, lapsing into the resigned quiet that broke Sofia's heart more than tears ever could. At 3 years old, Emma shouldn't have understood sacrifice, shouldn't have learned to make herself small and silent to accommodate her mother's desperation. Yet here they were. The elevator doors opened with a soft chime, and Sophia quickly scanned the hallway. Empty. Thank God. She moved swiftly to the storage closet at the end of the corridor, her secret, shameful sanctuary. Inside, between industrial cleaning supplies and extra light bulbs, she'd created a small space. An old yoga mat she'd found in the building's donation pile. A thin blanket. Some of Emma's quiet toys. Okay, me more, Sophia whispered, carefully lowering the bag and unzipping it fully. Emma climbed out, her cheeks flushed, her curls mussed. Sophia's heart clenched. Remember, you have to be very quiet, okay? Like we practiced. Like a little mouse. Emma nodded, clutching her stuffed rabbit, Mr. Hoppy, as threadbare as their circumstances. Like a mouse, she repeated solemnly. Sophia checked her phone. 6:38 a.m. 7 minutes until her shift started. She kissed Emma's forehead, breathing in the sweet scent of the discount baby shampoo they used. Mama loves you more than all the stars. I'll be back so fast, and then we'll go see Miss Rachel. Can we have pancakes? Emma asked, her voice small and hopeful. Sophia's throat tightened. They'd had oatmeal for breakfast again. The cheap kind that came in bulk. Pancakes were a luxury from another lifetime. Maybe this weekend, baby. Maybe. She forced herself to stand, to close the closet door, to become Sophia the invisible maid instead of Sophia the mother. The transformation was practiced, painful. She tied on her apron, grabbed her cleaning cart, and headed to her assigned section, floors 30 through 35. The penthouse floors. The billionaire floors. The encounter with Alexander Kane replayed in her mind as she worked. His shocked expression. His expensive suit. The way he'd looked at her, really looked at her, perhaps for the first time since she'd started working in this building. Most residents gazed through the staff as if they were ghosts, useful, but ultimately invisible. But Kane had seen her. Worse, he'd seen what she was doing. Sophia's supervisor, Marcus, was a perpetually irritated man who treated tardiness like a cardinal sin. She'd been late twice in the past month, once when Emma had been sick, once when the subway had broken down, and he'd made clear there wouldn't be a third time. This job, minimum wage though it was, represented survival. Health insurance. A steady paycheck. In New York City, with a 3-year-old daughter and no family, no support, no backup plan, Sophia couldn't afford to lose it. She scrubbed a marble countertop in an empty apartment, her reflection ghostly in the polished surface. She looked tired. No, beyond tired, exhausted in a way that sleep couldn't fix. At 28, she felt 40. The past year had aged her in ways that had nothing to do with numbers. Marco's departure played in her mind like a cruel film reel. His casual announcement one morning that he was done playing house, that fatherhood wasn't what he'd signed up for, that Sophia and Emma were holding him back. He'd left behind half a month's rent and empty promises to send money. That was 14 months ago. She hadn't heard from him since. She'd tried to make it work. God, how she'd tried. But New York City devoured single mothers. Daycare costs alone consumed most of her paycheck. Her tiny studio apartment in the Bronx, where the heating barely worked and the neighbors fought through paper-thin walls, took the rest. Food banks helped. Government assistance helped. But it was never enough. There was never breathing room, never safety, just an endless, desperate scramble to keep Emma fed, sheltered, and safe. The closet solution had started accidentally. A daycare closure for repairs had left Sophia scrambling, unable to miss work, unable to find backup care she could afford. In desperation, she'd brought Emma with her, hidden her in the storage closet, and raced to drop her at daycare the moment it opened. It had worked, so she'd done it again when the timing didn't align.
And again.
Until it became her shameful routine. Sophia moved through the penthouse floor mechanically, cleaning homes that could fit 10 of her apartment inside them. Crystal chandeliers that cost more than she'd earn in a decade. Wine cellars stocked with bottles worth more than her yearly rent. The disparity used to anger her. Now it just exhausted her. She was vacuuming a hallway when she felt it, a presence behind her. She turned and nearly dropped the vacuum handle. Alexander Kane stood there, still in his expensive suit, but his tie was loosened, his expression troubled. He held 2 cups of coffee from what looked like the boutique cafe in the lobby, the one where a single coffee cost $8. "I didn't mean to startle you," he said over the vacuum's noise. Sophia quickly shut it off, her pulse racing. Residents didn't seek out staff. They certainly didn't bring them coffee. "Mr. Kane, I'm sorry, am I in your way? I can come back."
No.
He held out one of the cups. "I wanted to talk. If you have a moment." Sophia glanced nervously down the hallway. Fraternizing with residents was frowned upon, but refusing a resident's request was worse. She accepted the coffee with uncertain hands.
Thank you, sir.
"But I'm on the clock and my supervisor." "I spoke with Marcus," Alexander said. "I told him I needed some items in my penthouse moved and requested you specifically to help. He was agreeable." Of course he was. Money talked. Sophia's grip tightened on the cup. "I don't understand. Why would you do that?" "Because I haven't been able to stop thinking about this morning." Alexander ran a hand through his hair, disrupting its perfect styling. He looked uncomfortable, vulnerable even. "About your daughter." "Emma, you said?" Sophia's maternal instincts flared immediately. "She's safe. I would never put her in danger. I know how it looked, but I believe you." His interruption was gentle. "That's not what concerns me. What concerns me is that you're in a position where that's necessary. Where putting your 3-year-old daughter in a school bag and hiding her in a closet seems like the best available option." Shame burned through Sophia, hot and acidic. She looked away, blinking back tears she couldn't afford to shed. "Not here. Not in front of him. It's temporary. Just until I can find a daycare with earlier hours that I can afford. Or until I can figure something else out."
How?
Alexander asked quietly. "Sophia, I'm not trying to hurt you. But I've spent the morning thinking about this, and I can't see a solution that doesn't involve you working yourself into the ground while your daughter grows up in closets and school bags." The tears came anyway, hot tracks down her cheeks that she angrily wiped away. "Then I work myself into the ground. What choice do I have? Emma needs food, shelter, safety. I provide that. However I can. That's what mothers do." "Fathers should do that too," Alexander said, his voice hard. "Her father left." The words came out bitter. Turns out being a parent wasn't authentic to his journey, or whatever excuse he used.
"So, it's just me."
And I'm doing my best. Alexander was quiet for a long moment, studying her with those intense blue eyes. Sophia felt exposed, raw, as if he could see every failure, every fear, every desperate compromise she'd made. "Come work for me," he said finally. Sophia blinked. "I already work in your building."
No.
"Come work for me directly. As my private housekeeper. The penthouse only. Better pay, significantly better. And Emma can be there. I have a spare room that's never used. Set it up for her. Let her play, sleep, be a child while you work. No more hiding. No more running through the streets. No more fear." The offer was so unexpected, so impossibly generous, that Sophia couldn't process it. What? Why would you?" "Because it's the right thing to do," Alexander said simply. "Because I have resources sitting unused while you're carrying your daughter in a bag. Because—" He paused, something vulnerable crossing his face. "Because I'm tired of living in a world where I ignore suffering I could easily alleviate." Sophia's mind raced. Better pay. Emma's safe and nearby. No more terrifying morning runs. It sounded too good to be true, which meant it probably was. "What's the catch?" "No catch. I'll pay you twice what you're making now. Health insurance. Paid time off. Normal hours, say, 8 to 4? Earlier if you need. You'd have your evenings with Emma." Twice her current pay would be life-changing. But Sophia had learned that nothing came free, especially not from men with power. "Mr. Kane, I appreciate the offer, but I can't accept charity." "It's not charity. It's employment. I need someone I can trust in my space, and you clearly need better circumstances. This helps us both." "People will talk," Sophia said quietly. "They'll assume things." Understanding dawned in Alexander's eyes. "That I'm offering this in exchange for—"
Jesus, no.
"Sophia, this is strictly professional. I'm offering you a job, nothing more. You'd work, you'd get paid, end of transaction. If you're worried about appearances, we can draft a formal contract. Make everything explicitly clear." Sophia wanted to believe him.
God, she wanted to.
But life had taught her to be suspicious of easy answers, of powerful men bearing gifts. Still, she thought of Emma in that closet, of the endless exhausting scramble, of the constant fear of one more crisis pushing them over the edge. "Can I think about it?" she asked. "Of course. Take all the time you need." Alexander pulled out his wallet, extracted the business card. "My private number. Call or text when you decide. Or if you need anything before then." Sophia took the card, the expensive cardstock foreign in her work-roughened hands. "Why are you doing this?" "Really?" Alexander met her eyes, and Sophia saw something there she hadn't expected. Loneliness, perhaps, or regret. "Because this morning I saw something real. Something that mattered. And I realized I haven't felt that way about anything in a very long time. You and Emma, you remind me that there's more to life than board meetings and profit margins. That seems worth protecting." Before Sophia could respond, her phone alarm chimed. 7:13 a.m. Time to get Emma to daycare. "I have to go," she said urgently. "Of course. But Sophia?" Alexander's voice stopped her. "However you decide about my offer. I mean what I said. If you need anything at all, call me." Sophia nodded, unable to speak past the lump in her throat, and hurried toward the elevator. As she descended, her mind whirled. Alexander Kane's offer represented hope, but hope was dangerous. Hope could disappoint. Still, as she retrieved Emma from the closet and held her close, breathing in her daughter's sweet scent, Sophia allowed herself to imagine a life where Emma didn't have to hide, where Sophia didn't have to run, where maybe, just maybe, they could breathe. The billionaire had offered her a lifeline. Now she just had to decide if she was brave enough to take it. Sophia didn't call that day, or the next. Alexander Kane's business card sat on her bedside table in the studio apartment she shared with Emma, a small rectangle of expensive cardstock that seemed to glow with possibility in the dim light. She'd pick it up, dial the first few numbers, then set her phone down, her courage failing. It wasn't pride that stopped her. Pride was a luxury she'd surrendered long ago. It was fear. Fear that this was too good to be true. Fear that accepting help from a billionaire would come with hidden costs. Fear of the unknown, even when the known was slowly killing her. The weekend arrived, and Sophia kept her promise to Emma about pancakes, splurging $5 on mix and syrup. They ate sitting cross-legged on the floor of their apartment because the table was piled with laundry Sophia was too exhausted to fold. Emma got syrup in her hair and laughed, and for those few moments, Sophia felt something close to peace. But Sunday night brought its familiar dread. Another week stretched ahead, more hiding, more running, more exhaustion. Sophia lay awake after Emma had fallen asleep, staring at the water-stained ceiling, doing the math she'd done 1,000 times. Her paycheck covered rent with $40 to spare. Food came from assistance programs and careful budgeting. Emma's daycare was subsidized, but still took a painful chunk. There was nothing left for emergencies, for dreams, for the future. At 2 a.m., Sophia picked up Alexander Kane's card again. In the darkness, with Emma sleeping peacefully beside her, she typed out a text. "Is the offer still open?" The response came instantly, as if he'd been awake too. "Yes. Absolutely." Her fingers trembled as she typed. "I'd like to accept. When can we discuss details?" "Tomorrow morning? I can have coffee and breakfast sent to wherever you'd like to meet." Sophia thought of Marcus, her supervisor, of the building's staff policies. "I don't want to lose my current position until everything is finalized. Can we meet after my shift?" "Around 4 p.m. "I'll come to you." "Where?" She gave him the address of the coffee shop 3 blocks from her building, the cheap one with watered-down coffee and worn vinyl booths, not the boutique cafes that dotted Manhattan's wealthier neighborhoods. A small test, perhaps, to see if he'd show up somewhere unglamorous. "I'll be there," he replied. Then, after a pause, "Thank you for trusting me with this opportunity." The phrasing struck her, trusting me with this opportunity, as if she were doing him a favor rather than the reverse. Sophia set down her phone and finally slept, her dreams less anxious than they'd been in months. Monday morning's routine felt different. Sophia still smuggled Emma in the school bag. She wouldn't change anything until a contract was signed, until the new job was real and secure. But now there was hope coloring the familiar indignity. Emma seemed to sense it, chattering more cheerfully about the daycare field trip planned for later that week. "We're going to see ducks, Mama." "Real ducks in a pond. That's wonderful, baby." Sophia kissed her daughter's forehead, adjusting the straps of the school bag. "You'll have to tell me all about them." The workday crawled by with agonizing slowness. Sophia cleaned mechanically, her mind on the meeting ahead. What if Alexander Kane changed his mind? What if this was some elaborate joke? What if he expected things she couldn't give? By 3:45 p.m., she'd changed out of her uniform in the staff bathroom, replacing it with her nicest outfit, a black sweater from Target, jeans without holes, her only pair of boots that weren't scuffed beyond repair. She picked up Emma from daycare, letting her daughter chatter about her day while anxiety churned in Sophia's stomach. The coffee shop was nearly empty when they arrived at 4 p.m. Sophia chose a booth in the back, Emma coloring on napkins with crayons Sophia kept in her purse. 5 minutes passed. Then 10. Sophia's hope began to wither. Then the door opened, and Alexander Kane walked in. He looked different in casual clothes, dark jeans, a simple gray sweater, a wool coat that probably cost a fortune but didn't scream it. Several customers glanced his way, sensing something that marked him as different, wealthy, powerful. But Alexander's attention fixed immediately on Sophia's booth. "I'm sorry I'm late," he said, sliding into the opposite seat. "I wasn't sure about parking around here, so I walked from my office." He'd walked. 40 blocks. Sophia felt something soften in her chest. Emma looked up from her coloring, her eyes going wide. Mama, who's that? This is Mr. Kane, baby. He's a friend from work. Alexander is fine, he said, smiling at Emma with surprising warmth. And you must be Emma. Your mom told me about you. That's a beautiful drawing. Is that Mr. Hoppy? Emma beamed, delighted to be seen.
Yes.
He's my best friend. He's a rabbit. I can see that. He looks very loved. Something in Sophia's chest cracked at the genuine kindness in Alexander's voice. Emma was used to being invisible to adults who looked through her rather than at her. This simple acknowledgement was a gift. A waitress appeared, tired, middle-aged, moving with the efficiency of long practice. What can I get you folks? Hot chocolate for Emma, Sophia said. And coffee for me. Make that 2 coffees and a hot chocolate, Alexander added. And whatever pastries you have. All of them, actually. The waitress blinked. All of them.
Please.
We're celebrating. When she left, Sophia raised an eyebrow. All the pastries? Life's too short for restraint when it comes to pastries, Alexander said. Then, more seriously, I've had my lawyers draw up a contract. I wanted to go over it with you before you make any final decisions. He pulled out a folder from his bag, spreading documents across the worn table. Sophia's heart raced as she scanned the pages. Employment contract. Benefits package. Non-disclosure agreement. The salary is here, Alexander pointed. $40,000 a year to start, with performance reviews every 6 months that could increase that amount. Health insurance. Comprehensive, covering both you and Emma. 3 weeks paid vacation. Sick leave. The position would be Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. 40,000. Sophia's current salary was barely 19. This was more than double. It was life-changing. The duties are outlined here, Alexander continued. Essentially maintaining the penthouse, cleaning, some cooking if you're comfortable with that, managing my schedule sometimes. Nothing you haven't done before. The spare bedroom would be converted into a space for Emma. I've already contacted a designer, pending your approval of course, to make it child-friendly. Toys, books, a small bed for naps, whatever she needs. This is too much, Sophia whispered. It's fair compensation for work I need done, Alexander corrected gently. Sophia, I'm not a charity case for you to fix. I'm offering you employment that serves both of us. The pastries arrived, a ridiculous pile of croissants, muffins, cookies. Emma's eyes went saucer-wide. Mama, can I? Yes, baby. Pick whatever you want. As Emma carefully selected a chocolate chip cookie, Sophia reread the contract. It all seemed legitimate, professional. The non-disclosure agreement troubled her until she read its provisions. It was designed to protect her privacy as much as Alexander's, preventing him from discussing her personal circumstances without permission. Why are you really doing this? Sophia asked quietly. People like you don't just help people like me. Alexander was quiet for a long moment, watching Emma enjoy her cookie with single-minded 3-year-old bliss. When he spoke, his voice carried a weight that suggested old wounds. My mother was a single parent, he said finally. Different circumstances than yours. She was wealthy, divorced rather than abandoned. But I remember what it felt like to sense her struggle, to know she was tired, stressed, trying to hold everything together alone. I remember wishing someone would help her. Someone did, eventually. Her brother, my uncle, stepped in, changed everything for us. He met Sophia's eyes. I can't help my mother anymore. She passed away 5 years ago. But I can help you. Call it paying forward a debt I can never repay directly. Sophia's throat tightened. I'm sorry about your mother. Thank you. Alexander smiled sadly. She would have liked you. She always said the measure of a person was what they did when things were hard. You're smuggling your daughter in a school bag and running through the city to avoid being late to work. That's love. That's strength. I respect that. The tears came then, quiet and inevitable. Sophia wiped them away quickly, mindful of Emma, but Alexander had already signaled the waitress for napkins. If I accept, Sophia said shakily, things have to be completely professional. I can't. I won't be one of those stories. The Maid and the Billionaire. I need this to be real, legitimate, proper. It will be.
I swear it.
You'll have your own entrance code, your own key, complete autonomy over Emma's care and schedule. If anything ever makes you uncomfortable, you speak up and we address it immediately. Your job security doesn't depend on anything except the work itself. Sophia looked at the contract again, at the numbers that represented safety, at the benefits that represented hope. She looked at Emma, chocolate-smudged and happy. She looked at Alexander Kane, this stranger who'd seen her at her lowest, and responded with unexpected kindness. Okay, she said. I accept. Alexander's smile transformed his face, making him look younger, less burdened. Really? Really? When do I start? How about next Monday? That gives you time to transition from your current position. I'll handle any conversations with building management about the change. They spent the next hour going over details, what Emma would need, what Sophia's typical day might look like, logistics and schedules and practicalities. Emma, full of cookie and hot chocolate, eventually crawled into Sophia's lap and fell asleep, her small warm weight a familiar comfort. She's beautiful, Alexander said softly. You've done an amazing job with her. I've done my best. It hasn't always felt like enough. Best is enough, Alexander said firmly. That's all anyone can ask. When they finally left the coffee shop, the evening had grown dark and cold. Alexander insisted on calling them a car service home, over Sophia's protests. Please, he said, let me do this one thing. It's late, it's cold, and you're carrying Emma. Sophia relented, too tired to argue. As the car pulled away, Emma sleeping against her shoulder, Sophia watched Alexander Kane standing on the sidewalk, hands in his pockets, watching them go. He looked lonely standing there, despite all his wealth and power. Maybe, Sophia thought, they were both rescuing each other. The next week passed in a blur of transitions. Sophia gave notice at her housekeeping job, enduring Marcus's irritated questions and suspicious looks. She didn't explain, the NDA prevented it, but also it was none of his business. She said only that she'd been offered a private position with better hours. The other housekeepers threw her an impromptu goodbye gathering in the break room, store-bought cake and well wishes from women who understood struggle intimately. Sophia hugged each of them, fighting tears, knowing they were still trapped in the cycle she was escaping. Friday was her last day of hiding Emma in closets, of running through the streets, of choosing between food and stability. Sophia collected her final paycheck and walked out of the building service entrance for the last time. Monday morning, she returned through the front entrance as a private employee, not anonymous staff. Emma held her hand, wearing a new dress Alexander had sent over the weekend, a gift he'd insisted on, along with a box of toys and books for her new room. The penthouse took Sophia's breath away in daylight. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked Central Park, the morning sun turning everything golden. The space was immaculate but strangely sterile, like a showroom rather than a home. Good morning, Alexander said, emerging from his office. He dressed down, jeans and a simple button-down, making Sophia feel less awkward in her work clothes. Good morning. Sophia's voice sounded small in the vast space. Alexander knelt to Emma's level. Good morning, Emma. Would you like to see your room? Emma looked to Sophia for permission, received a nod, and took Alexander's offered hand. He led them down a hallway to a door Sophia had assumed was storage. He opened it and Sophia gasped. The room had been transformed into a child's paradise. Soft lavender walls. A small white bed shaped like a cloud. Bookshelves full of picture books. A toy kitchen set. A art table stocked with crayons and paper. A reading nook with cushions and a tent. It was more than Sophia could have afforded in a lifetime. "If there's anything else she needs, just tell me," Alexander said. "I want her to be comfortable here." Emma had already run to the toy kitchen, her delighted squeals filling the space. Sophia covered her mouth with her hand, overwhelmed. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for seeing us. For caring. I don't know how to—" "You don't have to thank me," Alexander said gently. "Just let me help. That's all I ask." As Emma played, as the morning sun streamed through windows overlooking the city where they'd struggled for so long, Sophia felt something she hadn't felt in over a year. Safe. The billionaire had seen a maid put her toddler in a school bag. And instead of looking away, he'd changed everything. The first week in Alexander Kane's penthouse felt like living in a museum where Sophia was both curator and trespasser. She moved through rooms that could house entire families, cleaning surfaces that were already pristine, organizing spaces that held more empty air than her entire apartment building. Emma's delighted laughter echoed through marble hallways designed for silence, a joyful disruption that made the sterile luxury feel, for the first time, inhabited. Alexander left for work early most mornings, returning late most evenings. Their interactions were brief, professional, questions about household supplies, discussions about schedules, polite distance. Sophia appreciated the space but found herself studying him when he wasn't looking. He seemed lonely in ways that had nothing to do with being alone. The penthouse held no personal photographs, no mementos, no evidence that anyone actually lived there. It was a showcase, not a home. By Thursday, Sophia had established a routine. She'd arrive at 7:45 a.m., Emma in tow, no longer smuggled but openly present. They'd make breakfast together in the massive kitchen, eggs and toast, simple meals that felt luxurious when prepared on marble countertops with top-of-the-line appliances. Emma would play in her room while Sophia worked, occasionally wandering out to show her mother a drawing or request a snack. At 4 p.m., they'd leave through the front door like legitimate residents of the building, no running, no fear, no hiding. It was Thursday evening, around 5:30 p.m., when everything shifted. Sophia should have left at 4 p.m., but a pipe had leaked in one of the guest bathrooms, requiring emergency attention from building maintenance. She'd stayed to coordinate, not wanting water damage to ruin the pristine space. Emma had fallen asleep on the couch in her room, exhausted from a day of play. Alexander arrived home to find Sophia still there, sitting at the kitchen island, reviewing maintenance reports on her phone. He looked surprised, then concerned. "Is everything all right? You're usually gone by now." Sophia explained about the pipe, showing him photos of the minor damage. "The building's sending someone to assess tomorrow morning. I'll be here to coordinate." "I hope that's okay, staying late today, I know my hours are supposed to be." "Sophia, it's fine." Alexander set down his briefcase, loosened his tie. "You stayed to handle an emergency. That's above and beyond, actually. Thank you." He moved to the kitchen, pulling out ingredients, chicken, vegetables, pasta. Sophia watched, confused, as this billionaire tech mogul began cooking with the practiced ease of someone who actually knew their way around a stove. "You cook." The words slipped out before Sophia could stop them. Alexander glanced up with a wry smile. "Surprised? I assumed you had private chefs. Meal services." "I do, sometimes. But I learned to cook young. My mother insisted. She said no son of hers would be helpless in a kitchen." His expression softened with memory. "Some nights, I actually enjoy it. Gives my hands something to do, while my mind processes the day." Sophia should have left then. Should have collected Emma and maintained the professional boundaries she'd insisted upon. But something kept her seated. Curiosity perhaps, or loneliness, or the simple human need for connection. "That's a good skill to have," she said. "I wish I had more time to cook properly." Most nights it's whatever's fastest for Emma. Alexander paused, considering. "Have you eaten? Either of you? We'll grab something on the way home." "Or," Alexander said carefully, You could stay. I'm making more than enough. Call it compensation for staying late to deal with the leak. Sophia hesitated. This felt like crossing a line, blurring professional boundaries into something more personal. But Emma was asleep, and Sophia was hungry, and the smell of garlic and herbs was making her stomach growl.
Just dinner, she said.
Then we leave. Just dinner, Alexander agreed. They fell into an easy rhythm. Alexander cooking, Sophia setting the table, their movements coordinated through the universal language of shared tasks. They didn't talk much, but the silence was comfortable rather than awkward. Emma woke up drawn by the smell of food, appearing in the kitchen doorway rubbing her eyes. Mama? What's happening? Mr. Kane made dinner, Sophia said. Are you hungry, baby? Emma nodded, climbing into one of the high-backed chairs at the dining table that probably cost more than Sophia's monthly rent. Alexander served them pasta primavera, simple but perfectly executed, the vegetables crisp and flavorful. This is really good, Sophia said, meaning it. My mother's recipe, Alexander replied. She believed food should be simple, but made with care. No point in complexity, just to show off. Emma ate with single-minded focus, occasionally dropping pasta on her lap. Sophia moved to clean it, but Alexander waved her off. It's just a chair. We'll clean it later. Something about that simple statement, the acceptance of mess, of normal childhood chaos in this pristine space, made Sophia relax in ways she hadn't since starting this job. Can I ask you something? Alexander said as they ate. Why New York? You've mentioned no family here, no support system. This city is brutal for single parents. Why stay? Sophia set down her fork, considering. Emma was born here. Marco, her father, was from here. When he left, I thought about going back to Arizona where I grew up, but... She shrugged. Pride, maybe? Or stupidity. I didn't want to admit failure by running home. Didn't want my mother to be right about Marco being a mistake. Was she right? Oh, completely. Sophia laughed, but it held no humor. My mom never liked him. Said he was too charming, too smooth. I thought she was just being overprotective. Turns out mothers usually know. Alexander was quiet for a moment. My mother didn't like my ex-fiancée, Victoria. She said Victoria loved my bank account more than she loved me. I accused Mom of being jealous of my happiness. What happened? Mom died. Cancer, sudden and brutal. 6 months later, I discovered Victoria had been cheating with one of my business partners, had been for years. She admitted she'd been waiting for the right moment to divorce me and cash out. His jaw tightened. Mom didn't even get to say, I told you so. Sophia reached across the table without thinking, squeezing his hand briefly. I'm sorry. That's awful. All of it. Thanks. Alexander looked at their hands, surprised by the contact. Sophia pulled back quickly, but he smiled. It's okay. Sometimes human touch is actually nice. Emma, oblivious to the adult undercurrents, piped up, Mr. Kane, do you have any kids? Emma, Sophia said quickly, that's not polite to ask. No, it's fine. Alexander's expression turned wistful. I don't, Emma. I always thought I would, but life didn't work out that way. Why not? Emma, Sophia warned again, but Alexander shook his head. It's a fair question. I guess I was so focused on building my company, on being successful, that I forgot about building other things. Like a family. A real life. By the time I noticed, the person I thought I'd build that with was gone, and I was alone. The vulnerability in his voice made Sophia's chest ache. It's not too late. You're only 33. Maybe. He didn't sound convinced. What about you? Do you want more children? On my income? I can barely manage one. Sophia softened the words with a smile. But honestly, Emma's enough. She's everything. I got lucky with her. She got lucky with you, Alexander corrected, watching Emma try to twirl pasta on her fork with mixed success. After dinner, Sophia insisted on cleaning up despite Alexander's protests. He helped anyway, the two of them washing dishes side by side, an oddly domestic scene in the luxury kitchen. Emma played with her toys nearby, her happy humming filling the space. "This is nice," Alexander said quietly. "Having people here. Life. It's been a long time since this place felt like anything other than an expensive hotel room I happen to sleep in." Sophia understood. "You've built an empire but forgotten to build a home." "Exactly." He looked at her with something like gratitude. "You get it. I'm living the opposite problem. I have love and family, but not enough resources to properly nurture them. Neither extreme is great." "Maybe," Alexander said slowly, "we can help each other find some middle ground." Over the following weeks, their relationship shifted into something Sophia couldn't quite define. Still professional, she was always careful about that, but warmer, more genuine. Alexander started coming home earlier, often arriving while Sophia and Emma were still there. He'd join them for dinner sometimes, or play with Emma while Sophia finished work. He taught Emma chess basics with infinite patience. He read her stories in funny voices that made her giggle. Sophia watched these interactions with mixed emotions. She was grateful for the male presence in Emma's life, for the attention and care Alexander showed. But she was also wary. Getting comfortable, getting attached, that was dangerous. This situation, however nice, was temporary. Alexander Kane was her employer, nothing more. She couldn't forget that. But forgetting became harder as Alexander opened up more. He told her about his company, the stress of managing thousands of employees, the loneliness of high-stakes decisions. She told him about her childhood in Arizona, about dreams she'd had before Marco, and poverty had narrowed her world. They discovered shared interests, old movies, terrible reality TV they'd watch ironically, a love of thunderstorms. Alexander would text her during the day, random thoughts or jokes, and Sophia found herself checking her phone with embarrassing frequency. One evening, about 6 weeks into her employment, Alexander came home, looking shattered. Sophia was packing up to leave when she noticed his expression, drawn, exhausted, devastated in a way that had nothing to do with physical tiredness. "What happened?" she asked before she could stop herself. Alexander slumped onto the couch. "The board wants me to fire 300 people. Outsource their jobs. It's more profitable, more efficient. But these are real people with families, with mortgages, with lives. And I'm supposed to just eliminate them for better quarterly numbers." Sophia sat beside him, Emma playing quietly across the room. "What do you want to do?" "Fight it. Find another way." "But I'm tired, Sophia. I'm so tired of every decision being about money, about profit margins, about shareholders. When did I become the kind of person who values efficiency over human lives?" "You're not that person," Sophia said firmly. "That person wouldn't have helped me. Wouldn't care about those 300 employees. You're just tired and overwhelmed. How do you do it?" Alexander turned to her, his blue eyes intense. "How do you stay kind when life keeps grinding you down? You should be bitter, angry. But you're not." "I am sometimes," Sophia admitted. "But bitterness takes energy I need for Emma. So I choose gratitude where I can find it. Even in the hard times, there's usually something small to be grateful for." Alexander studied her for a long moment. "You're remarkable. You know that." The compliment made Sophia's cheeks warm. "I'm just trying to survive." "No," he said softly. "You're thriving despite impossible circumstances. There's a difference." The moment stretched between them, charged with something Sophia was afraid to name. She stood abruptly. "We should go. It's late." Alexander didn't stop her, but his eyes followed her as she collected Emma, packed their things, headed for the door. "Sophia," he called as she was leaving. She turned back. "Yes. Thank you. For listening. For caring. For being you." Sophia nodded, unable to trust her voice, and left quickly. That night, lying in her studio apartment with Emma asleep beside her, Sophia acknowledged a terrifying truth. She was developing feelings for Alexander Kane. Real feelings, not just gratitude or professional respect. She looked forward to seeing him, thought about him constantly, cared about his happiness beyond the bounds of employer-employee dynamics. This was dangerous. This could destroy everything she'd built. But knowing she should stop and actually stopping were two different things. And as the weeks continued, as Alexander became more present in their lives, as the three of them began to feel almost like a family, Sophia found herself falling deeper despite all her warnings to herself. She was crossing a line she'd sworn to respect, and she had no idea how to step back. Spring arrived in New York with tentative warmth, coaxing the city out of winter's gray grip. Central Park erupted in green from Alexander's penthouse windows, the trees below blurring into a verdant ocean that made Sophia think of hope, of growth, of things blooming despite concrete. 3 months into her employment, Sophia's life had transformed in ways that still felt surreal. She'd moved out of the studio apartment in the Bronx, at Alexander's insistence, and with his help, into a modest 2-bedroom in Queens. Nothing fancy, but clean, safe, with working heat and neighbors who smiled. Emma had her own room for the first time, painted yellow, like sunshine at Sophia's request. But increasingly, the penthouse felt more like home than her new apartment. Alexander had stopped trying to maintain professional distance. He'd join them for meals now without excuse or invitation, simply appearing at dinner time with takeout or groceries to cook. He'd extended Sophia's hours unofficially, not through formal contract changes, but through natural expansion. She'd stay later because leaving felt arbitrary. He'd arrive home earlier because he wanted to see them. Emma adored him. Uncle Alex, she called him now, the title emerging spontaneously one day and sticking. He'd read to her every evening, their routine sacrosanct. Currently, they were working through Charlotte's Web, Alexander doing distinct voices for each character that made Emma dissolve into giggles. Sophia told herself this was good for Emma, having a positive male figure in her life, seeing healthy adult interaction. But she knew that was rationalization. The truth was simpler and more dangerous. She was falling in love with Alexander Kane, and he seemed to be falling too. It wasn't dramatic, no passionate declarations or stolen kisses. Instead, it was quiet and domestic. The way Alexander would make her coffee without asking, remembering she took it with cream and sugar. The way she'd pick up his favorite snacks at the grocery store without conscious thought. The way their hands would brush reaching for the same thing, the contact lingering a second too long. The way they'd catch each other staring and look away quickly, faces warm. The way he'd started calling her late at night after Emma was asleep, their conversations wandering from business to philosophy to childhood memories, sometimes lasting hours. The way she'd wear nicer clothes to work now, taking care with her appearance in ways that had nothing to do with professionalism. The way he looked at her, like she was precious, rare, worth cherishing. It terrified her. The turning point came on a Tuesday in late April. Alexander had taken the day off for a rare occurrence. 3 consecutive meetings had canceled, freeing his schedule unexpectedly. Sophia arrived at 8 a.m. to find him still in the penthouse, wearing sweatpants and an old t-shirt, looking younger and more relaxed than she'd ever seen him. "I thought we could do something different today," he said, almost nervous. "If you're comfortable with it. The weather's beautiful and I was thinking, Central Park? The zoo?" Emma mentioned wanting to see real animals, not just pictures. Sophia's heart did something complicated in her chest. "Alexander, you don't have to." "I want to," he interrupted. "I can't remember the last time I just enjoyed a day. No agenda, no meetings, just being. I'd like to try. With you both. If that's okay." How could Sophia refuse when he looked at her like that? When Emma was already dancing with excitement at the prospect of the zoo. "Okay," she heard herself say. "Let's go." The Central Park Zoo was modest compared to larger facilities, but through Emma's eyes, it was magic. She pressed her face against glass, watching penguins dive, giggled at the sea lions, spent 20 minutes entranced by the snow leopards. Alexander carried her on his shoulders so she could see better, patient and attentive, pointing out details Sophia would have missed. They ate hot dogs from a vendor, Alexander's first hot dog in probably a decade, he admitted sheepishly. Emma got mustard on her shirt. Sophia laughed at a monkey's antics. Alexander bought them ice cream despite the questionable temperature. They were, for those few hours, indistinguishable from any other family enjoying a spring day. "This is nice," Alexander said as they sat on a bench, Emma running off energy at a nearby playground. "I'd forgotten how nice simple things could be." "You've been living in the wrong world," Sophia said gently. "Money can buy a lot, but it can't buy this. Just being present. Enjoying small moments. I'm learning that." He turned to her, and Sophia's breath caught at the intensity in his eyes. "You're teaching me that, Alexander." "I know," he said quickly. "I know we've been avoiding this conversation. The thing that's been building between us. But Sophia, I have to say it because I'm terrible at pretending. I have feelings for you. Real feelings. Not because you work for me or because I feel guilty about how we met. Because of who you are, your strength, your kindness, the way you love Emma, the way you make me want to be better." Sophia's heart raced. "This is complicated. I know. Believe me, I know. There's the employment dynamic, the power imbalance. All the reasons this is a terrible idea." Alexander ran a hand through his hair. "If you don't feel the same way, tell me now and we'll never speak of it again. I'll be professional, respectful, appropriate. Your job is safe regardless. But if you do feel something—" "I do," Sophia whispered, the admission terrifying and liberating. "God help me, I do. But Alexander, I can't be another cliché. The maid who falls for the billionaire. I need my dignity, my independence. I need to know this is real and not just proximity or gratitude or some savior complex." Alexander took her hand carefully, his touch warm and certain. "It's real. I don't want to save you, Sophia. You've already saved yourself. I don't want to possess you or control you. I just want to be with you, to see where this could go if we're both brave enough to try." "What about Emma?" Sophia asked. "She's already attached to you. If this doesn't work out, if we try and fail, she loses you too. I can't risk her heart like that." "Then we don't fail," Alexander said simply. "We take this slow. We do it right. We build something real. I'm not going anywhere, Sophia. Whether you decide to date me or not, I'm in Emma's life now if you'll let me be. That doesn't change." Sophia looked across the playground to where Emma was going down a slide, her daughter's laughter carrying on the spring breeze. Then she looked back at Alexander, at this man who'd seen her at her worst and responded with compassion, who'd opened his home and his heart, who looked at her daughter with genuine affection rather than obligation. "Okay," she said.
Slow.
"Careful. But okay. Let's try." Alexander's smile could have lit the entire city. He squeezed her hand and Sophia squeezed back, and something fundamental shifted between them, from possibility to reality, from hoping to having. They told Emma that evening, carefully framing it in terms a 3-year-old could understand. "Uncle Alex and Mama like each other very much," Sophia explained. "So, sometimes Uncle Alex might hold Mama's hand or give her hugs. Is that okay with you?" Emma considered this with the seriousness children brought to important matters. Then she grinned. "Does this mean Uncle Alex is my daddy now?" Sophia's heart clenched. "No, baby. Uncle Alex is Uncle Alex. But he cares about us both very much." "Okay," Emma said easily, already moving on to more important topics like whether they could have pancakes for dinner. But later, after Emma was asleep, Alexander brought it up. They sat on his couch, Sophia tucked against his side in a way that felt simultaneously new and like coming home. "Would it be terrible," he asked quietly, If eventually I wanted to be her dad? Not replace anyone, I know I can't do that. But to be a father figure, a real one? Is that something you could see? Sophia pulled back to look at him. Alexander, we've been officially together for like 6 hours. I know. I'm not saying now. I'm saying eventually. Because I need you to know what I want long term. I want this. He gestured between them. Not just dating. I want a life together. A family. Marriage. Commitment. The whole traditional thing my mother always dreamed I'd have. That's a lot of pressure for a first date that involved hot dogs and a zoo, Sophia said, but her voice shook with emotion. I know.
I'm sorry.
I'm terrible at this. I tend to treat relationships like business deals, planning 5 years out. Alexander cupped her face gently. But I also know what I want. And I want you. Both of you. For as long as you'll have me. Sophia kissed him then, softly, tentatively, their first real kiss. It was sweet and gentle, and held promises of more. Let's start with now, she whispered against his lips. And build toward tomorrow. The next months unfolded like a dream Sophia was afraid to wake from. They kept their relationship quiet at first, protective of the fragile new thing growing between them. Sophia maintained her own apartment, her independence, even as she spent most of her time at the penthouse. They established routines that worked, family dinners, weekend outings, Emma's bedtimes that gave Sophia and Alexander time alone. Alexander was attentive and thoughtful in ways Sophia had never experienced. He learned Emma's favorite foods and kept them stocked. He attended her preschool performances, sitting in tiny chairs meant for parents. He consulted Sophia on decisions, valued her opinions, treated her as an equal despite the vast financial disparity between them. Sophia introduced him to her world too. The discount grocery stores where she'd learned to stretch dollars, the community center where Emma took gymnastics, the friends she'd made in her new neighborhood. Alexander never balked or seemed uncomfortable, genuinely interested in her life beyond his penthouse walls. They faced challenges too. The first time they encountered someone from Alexander's social circle, a business associate who looked at Sophia with barely concealed disdain, clearly sizing her up as inappropriate, Alexander had been fierce in her defense, making clear that disrespecting Sophia meant losing his business and friendship. Sophia struggled with guilt sometimes, wondering if she was using him, if she could trust her own feelings when he'd saved her from desperate circumstances. Alexander struggled with fear that Sophia would wake up one day and realize she deserved someone without his baggage, his demanding career, his complicated life. But they worked through it, communication becoming their foundation. They went to couples counseling proactively, wanting to build healthy patterns from the start. They read parenting books together, preparing for the possibility of Alexander taking a more official role in Emma's life. 6 months into their relationship, Alexander proposed. Not dramatically, they were making dinner together, Emma helping Alexander stir sauce while Sophia chopped vegetables. He simply set down his spoon, pulled a ring from his pocket, and knelt on the kitchen floor. Sophia Martinez, you've taught me what really matters in life. Not success or wealth, but love, family, presence. You've given me more in these months than I had in the previous 33 years. I want to spend my life earning the gift of yours. Will you marry me? Sophia looked at the ring. Beautiful but not ostentatious, clearly chosen with thought, and then at Alexander's face, so open and hopeful and terrified. She looked at Emma, who'd stopped stirring to watch with wide, excited eyes. Yes, Sophia said, laughing and crying simultaneously. Yes, absolutely yes. Emma cheered. Alexander stood and kissed her properly, the ring sliding onto Sophia's finger with perfect fit. Later, after Emma was asleep, they made love for the first time in Alexander's bedroom overlooking the city, tender and passionate and real. I love you, Alexander whispered against her skin. I love you so much it terrifies me. I love you too, Sophia replied. Even when I didn't want to, even when it was scary, I loved you. They married 3 months later in a small ceremony, just close friends and the family that mattered. Emma was flower girl, taking her job with utmost seriousness. Sophia wore a simple white dress she'd chosen herself, insisting on paying for it despite Alexander's protests. Alexander cried during his vows, his voice breaking as he promised to love and honor both Sophia and Emma for the rest of his life. When the officiant said, "You may kiss your bride," and Alexander did, Sophia felt something lock into place in her heart, a sense of rightness, of home, of having found where she belonged after years of wandering. The reception was joyful and uncomplicated. They danced. They laughed. Emma fell asleep on Alexander's shoulder during dinner, and he held her there, swaying slightly. This man who'd known nothing of family 6 months ago, now embracing it with his whole heart. That night, in their shared home, no longer his penthouse or her apartment but theirs, Sophia stood at the window looking out at the city that had nearly broken her and had ultimately brought her here. "What are you thinking?" Alexander asked, wrapping his arms around her from behind. "That fairy tales are real," Sophia said. "Just not the way we expect them to be." There was no prince on a white horse. Just a man who saw someone struggling and decided to care. A maid who taught a billionaire what wealth really means, Alexander countered. "Sounds pretty fairy tale to me." Sophia turned in his arms, looking up at the man who'd saved her by letting her save herself, who'd loved her not despite her circumstances, but because of the strength they'd revealed. "I love you, Alexander Kane." "I love you too, Sophia Kane." Her new name. Her new life. Hard-won and real and more precious, for having been earned rather than given. The billionaire had seen a maid put her toddler in a school bag and couldn't believe his eyes. And in that moment of seeing, truly seeing, both their lives had changed forever. 2 years later, Sophia stood in the same penthouse kitchen where she'd once worked as hired help, but now she moved through the space with a confidence of ownership, of belonging. The kitchen no longer felt sterile. Emma's artwork covered the refrigerator, family photos cluttered the counters, and the scent of her mother's pozole recipe simmered on the stove, a Sunday tradition she'd established to teach her daughter about their Mexican heritage. Emma was 5 now, enrolled in an excellent elementary school where she thrived, making friends and bringing home paintings and spelling tests with gold stars. She called Alexander Daddy without hesitation, the title earned through thousands of small moments, bandaged knees, bedtime stories, patient help with homework, unwavering presence. The legal adoption had been finalized 6 months ago. Marco had been easy to track down, still in New York, still charming his way through life, still utterly uninterested in fatherhood. He'd signed away his parental rights without argument, almost seeming relieved. Alexander's name now appeared on Emma's birth certificate where Marco's had been, and Emma had taken his last name proudly. Emma Kane. It fit her. Sophia heard the elevator chime, followed by familiar footsteps. Alexander appeared, earlier than expected, his tie already loosened, briefcase abandoned somewhere. He looked tired but smiled when he saw her. "Something smells incredible," he said, kissing her hello, the gesture casual and domestic and perfect. "Your mom's recipe? She finally sent it to me. Only took 2 years of asking." Sophia ladled a bowl for him. She wanted to make sure you'd appreciate it properly. Alexander's relationship with Sophia's mother had started rocky. Maria Martinez hadn't trusted this wealthy man's motives, had been protective of her daughter, who'd been hurt before. But Alexander had won her over with patience and sincerity, flying Sophia and Emma to Arizona regularly, sending Maria flowers on Mother's Day, asking her advice on parenting Emma. "I passed the test, right?" Alexander asked, sipping the pozole with genuine appreciation. "This is amazing. You passed a long time ago." She's just stubborn about admitting it. Sophia sat beside him at the kitchen island. "How was your day?" "Exhausting, but good." Alexander set down his spoon, turning serious. I made a decision today. A big one. I wanted to talk to you about it, even though it's technically done. Sophia's stomach tightened with familiar anxiety. Even after 2 years of marriage, of stability, part of her still waited for the other shoe to drop, for something to destroy their happiness. What is it? I'm stepping down as CEO, Alexander said quietly. Not immediately. There'll be a transition period. But by the end of the year, I'll be chairman of the board only, advisory capacity. Someone else will run the day-to-day operations. Sophia stared at him, shocked. Alexander, that company is your life. You built it from nothing. It was my life, he corrected gently. Past tense. Now my life is here. With you and Emma. And I'm tired of missing things that matter. I missed Emma's school play last month because of that Tokyo merger. I missed our anniversary dinner because of emergency board meetings. I'm tired of choosing between my family and my work when I'm wealthy enough that I don't have to choose at all. Are you sure? Sophia asked. I don't want you to resent us. To feel like we held you back. Alexander took her hands, his grip warm and certain. You haven't held me back. You've given me a reason to move forward in ways that actually matter. I want to coach Emma's soccer team next year. I want to take real vacations where I'm not checking emails every hour. I want to be present, not just physically here, but actually engaged. The company will be fine without me running everything.
But my family needs me.
And I need them. Tears blurred Sophia's vision. You're sure? Never been more sure of anything. He wiped her tears with his thumbs. Besides, I have other projects in mind. I've been thinking about starting a foundation, helping single parents, affordable childcare, education access. Things I know matter because I've seen firsthand how hard it is. You've given me a purpose beyond profit. Before Sophia could respond, Emma bounded into the kitchen, her kindergarten backpack bouncing. Daddy,
Mama,
can I show you what we did in art class today? It's a family portrait. Of course, sweetheart, Alexander said, lifting her onto his lap as Emma unrolled her painting. Sophia's throat tightened, looking at the image. 3 stick figures labeled carefully in Emma's emerging handwriting. Mama, Daddy, me. They stood in front of a tall building, the penthouse, clearly, with a yellow sun overhead and flowers at their feet. Hearts floated around the figures, pink and red and abundant. It's beautiful, baby, Sophia said, her voice thick with emotion. Did you show your teacher? Miss Rodriguez said it was the prettiest family she'd ever seen. Emma beamed. And I told her about how Daddy wasn't my daddy before, but now he is, and that's okay because love makes families, not just blood. That's what you always say, Mama. Alexander's eyes glistened. He pressed a kiss to the top of Emma's head. That's absolutely right, sweetheart. Love makes families. And, do you love us? Emma asked, turning to look at him with those serious eyes. More than all the stars in the sky, Alexander said, his voice breaking slightly. More than anything in the whole world. Good. Emma hugged him fiercely, then scrambled down. Can I go play before dinner? Sure, baby. Just wash your hands first. As Emma ran off, Alexander stood and pulled Sophia into his arms, holding her tightly. Thank you, he whispered. Thank you for being brave enough to trust me. For giving me this life. For making me a father. Thank you for seeing us, Sophia replied. For caring when you didn't have to. For loving Emma like she was yours from the beginning. They stood there in the kitchen, holding each other as the spring evening light turned golden through the floor-to-ceiling windows, the city sprawling below them. This penthouse that had once felt like a prison of luxury now felt like home, not because of the marble or the views, but because of the love that filled it. Later that evening, after Emma was asleep, Sophia found Alexander in his home office, looking at blueprints and designs. She recognized the logo of the architectural firm he'd hired. What's this? She asked. Alexander looked up, almost sheepish. A project I've been working on. I wanted to surprise you, but I realize I should probably discuss it first. He spread out the plans, and Sophia's heart stopped. It was a building design, multiple floors, institutional but warm, with playrooms and classrooms, and what looked like small apartments. It's a child care center, Alexander explained. But more than that, a comprehensive support facility for single working parents, affordable daycare with extended hours, job training programs, on-site counselors, emergency housing for families in crisis. Everything I wish had existed when you needed it. Sophia couldn't speak, tears streaming down her face. I've purchased a building in Queens, Alexander continued, near where your old apartment was. I want to break ground in 3 months. I was hoping. He paused, vulnerable. I was hoping you'd help me design it. You know what parents need, what would actually help. I want to do this right, not just throw money at the problem. Alexander. Sophia managed. This is incredible. This could help so many people. That's the idea. I can't help everyone, but I can help some. And maybe if enough people with resources did the same, we could actually make a difference. He pulled her onto his lap, wrapping his arms around her. You changed my life, Sophia. You showed me that wealth without purpose is empty. I want to spend the rest of my life paying that forward. Sophia kissed him deeply, pouring everything she felt into the gesture. Love, gratitude, pride, hope. When they broke apart, she pressed her forehead to his. I'm so proud of you. The man you've become. The man you helped me become, he corrected. They sat together in comfortable silence, looking at the building plans that represented hope for other families, for other women who might find themselves smuggling their toddlers in school bags because the world hadn't left them better options. The years that followed were full and rich in ways that had nothing to do with money. Alexander did step down as CEO, embracing his advisory role and focusing his energy on the foundation that grew from those initial blueprints. The Kane Family Center opened to tremendous success, providing comprehensive support to hundreds of families. Sophia became its director, her experience and empathy making her perfect for the role. They had another child, a son, Michael, who looked like Alexander but had Sophia's fierce determination. Emma was a doting big sister, teaching Michael to draw and read, protecting him with the fierce love she'd learned from her mother. They bought a house in Westchester, not a mansion, just a comfortable family home with a yard where kids could play and a kitchen big enough for big family gatherings. They kept the penthouse for city weekdays, but weekends were for the house, for normalcy, for the life they'd built together. Marco showed up once, 3 years after signing away his rights, wanting to reconnect with Emma. Sophia handled it with grace, Alexander standing silently supportive beside her as she firmly but kindly told Marco no, that he'd made his choice, that Emma had a father now, that showing up years later out of guilt or curiosity wasn't fair to their daughter. Marco left, and they never heard from him again. Emma thrived, growing into a thoughtful, compassionate girl who volunteered at the Kane Family Center, helping other kids like her mother had once been. She understood her own story. Sophia and Alexander had been honest about their journey, age-appropriate but truthful. Emma knew she was loved fiercely, had 2 families, her adopted dad's family and her biological heritage, and that love came in many forms. On Emma's 10th birthday, Alexander pulled Sophia aside at the party, watching their daughter laugh with friends, Michael toddling around with frosting on his face. Do you remember the first time I saw you? He asked. In that hallway, with Emma in the school bag? How could I forget? Sophia leaned into his side. I was terrified, ashamed, desperate. I was horrified, Alexander admitted. But also awakened, I guess. I'd been sleepwalking through life, accumulating wealth without meaning. Then I saw you, this young mother doing something desperate to protect your child, and something in me broke open. I saw real struggle for the first time, real love, real sacrifice. I thought you were just another wealthy guy who judged me, Sophia confessed. I never imagined that I'd fall in love with you. that you'd become my whole world." Alexander smiled. "Neither did I. Best surprise of my life." "Mine too." Sophia kissed him softly. "You saved us, you know. Emma and me. You gave us a future." "No," Alexander said firmly. "You saved yourselves. I just had the privilege of helping. And you saved me right back, from a life that looked successful but felt empty. From becoming someone who measured worth in dollars instead of love." They watched Emma blow out her candles, surrounded by friends and family, her joy incandescent. Michael cheered from Alexander's arms. Sophia's mother clapped, tears in her eyes as always at celebrations. Friends from the Kane family center mingled with Alexander's business associates, two worlds that had seemed incompatible now woven together seamlessly. "We did good," Sophia said softly. "We did amazing," Alexander corrected. "And we're not done yet." He was right. The years ahead would bring more challenges, more joys, more growth. Emma would go to college, pursue social work, continue her parents' legacy of helping others. Michael would become an architect, designing affordable housing. Sophia and Alexander would grow old together, their love deepening with each shared struggle and triumph. But all of that started here, in this moment, a family created not by conventional means but by choice, by courage, by two broken people finding wholeness in each other. The billionaire saw a maid put her toddler in a school bag and couldn't believe his eyes. In that moment of shock and compassion, two lives intersected that were meant to intertwine. Sophia needed help, yes, but Alexander needed purpose. Emma needed a father, and Alexander needed to be one. They rescued each other, built something beautiful from desperation and loneliness, proved that families aren't always born. Sometimes they're chosen, constructed with intention from the broken pieces of previous lives. Years later, Sophia would speak at Kane Family Center events, telling her story to rooms full of struggling parents, her voice strong and certain. "I know what it's like to feel invisible, to make impossible choices, to wonder if you're strong enough to keep going. But you are. You're stronger than you know. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, someone sees you, really sees you, and everything changes. Not because they save you, but because they stand beside you while you save yourself. That's what love does. That's what family does. That's what we're here to help you do." And Alexander would watch her speak, Michael on his hip, Emma at his side, and marvel at the woman who taught him what wealth really meant. Not the numbers in his bank account or the empire he'd built, but this love, family, purpose, making the world incrementally better for having been in it. The penthouse still stood, gleaming above the city, but it was no longer a sterile showpiece. It was filled with life, children's laughter, family dinners, the beautiful chaos of people who loved each other. The school bag that had carried Emma in secret now sat in a closet, kept as a reminder of where they'd been, how far they'd come, how desperation had been transformed into hope. Sophia would sometimes hold that bag, remembering the terror and shame of those mornings. But now she could also see the courage it represented, a mother doing whatever necessary to protect her child, refusing to surrender despite impossible circumstances. That courage had led her here, to this life, to this love, to this family. The billionaire saw a maid put her toddler in a school bag. And in that moment of seeing, truly seeing another person's humanity, struggle, and worth, everything changed. Love didn't erase their past struggles or make their different backgrounds disappear. But it built a bridge between two worlds, created space for both to exist, to learn from each other, to grow together. This was their story, messy and real and beautiful. Not a fairy tale, but something better, a testament to human kindness, to second chances, to the possibility that exists when people choose compassion over indifference. And they lived not happily ever after because life was never that simple, but purposefully, lovingly, gratefully ever after. Which was so much better. The end.